鬼岛之音
Ghost Island Media.
Hi everyone, this is Nature Nate, speaking to you from Vacation Land, which is actually somewhere outside of Oxford in the UK. Just two quick observations before we get on to the show. You know, the UK is a pretty complex place, and it's really interesting to be here and in Europe watching the gas crisis unfold and how it's affecting people. The switch to energy efficiency, the switch to heat pumps, promoting conversations about renewables. It's real and tangible here on the ground. People's energy bills are increasing dramatically, and this is after an incredibly hot summer. But looking at a more positive note, there are things in London that I've noticed that have changed. Biking has exploded since I was last here in London, and it's become such a pedestrian-friendly city. It's very refreshing to see, and I think it's something that the US and certainly Taiwan can learn from in terms of promoting other forms of public transit. Anyway, today we're going to talk with someone who's dealing with climate anxiety, and he's doing it in a very different and cool way. I say different because I've never talked to anyone like this before, well, at least on the show, so I'm very excited.
What we're noticing is that linking the two together, really allowing people to see that being more mindful in their own life will actually help in the ocean conservation and global climate conservation conversation. This is somewhat of a new approach.
His name is Joshua Sam Miller. Like me, he has 3 first names, depending on how you say them. Joshua is a musician, he makes songs about the ocean, and does live performances that are immersive and artistic. He performs at COP and at Burning Man, one of the only people I know who's done both. Today in our conversation with Joshua, we talk about meditation and breathwork. We talk about the healing power of sound, how we need to hold space for ocean conservation, and how it's something that you think is a bit silly and absurd 13 years later can become a central piece of your work. Now, play the tape, play the record, play the whale.
Hi, this is Waste Not, Why Not, a sustainability podcast from Ghost Island Media. I'm Nature Nate, a sustainability consultant based in Taiwan, working on energy, ocean, and waste. Okay, we're now live. Joshua, you're a musician, a filmmaker, a conservationist, a storyteller, a yogi, a connector of oceans, sounds, and peoples. Joshua, how are you all these things? Are you all these things?
Thanks, Nate. It's great to be here. And so I would say all of the above and so much more. And I think all of us have that possibility to be defined in so many ways. So thank you for the warm introduction.
How would you describe yourself if you were like at a cocktail party and someone was like, hey, Joshua Sam Miller, who are you?
As you said, wear many hats. And as a startup entrepreneur, which is my focus these days, you have to wear many hats. I kind of started out more in the film side of my creative pursuits, and then about 5-6 years ago, switched to more the music focus of my creative life. And now I'm really fusing it all together, and it's pretty exciting.
So let's kind of go back to sort of the primordial beginning. Where are you from? Did you grow up around the ocean? Did you grow up in like an artistic household?
I did grow up in the suburbs of New York City, so we were coastal, would visit the beach pretty regularly, and had a kind of family bond around scuba diving. My parents were both avid scuba divers and brought me to very, very beautiful destinations as a child. You know, as I got older, I slowly watched start to decay and really become more polluted, and remind myself, you know, when I was a child, how vibrant they were. Some of those locations were in the Caribbean, which was pretty easy to get to from New York City, and also in the Pacific. So I'd say I had this connection to water and connection to ocean from a young age.
When did music get into the picture? I've watched some of your concerts, recordings. You help people become more mindful. And my understanding is becoming more mindful, people create less waste. They're more connected to the place they live in. They become happier. And I think this is a really important conversation because so many people reach out to me about climate anxiety, climate grief, and beyond. How did you get into this? Is this something that comes up? Do people kind of approach you with their own grief and worry about the ocean?
Definitely. What we're noticing is that linking the two together, really allowing people to see that being more mindful in their own life will actually help in the ocean conservation and global climate conservation conversation. This is somewhat of a new approach. I'm finding that a lot of people are really resonating with that. Inspiring people to be happier with less actually has very good impact on the climate conversation, and I think is a huge piece in the puzzle to slow down our rate of destruction. I don't think it's a solution to negate that which we've already created, but I do think it's an essential part of the solution to just slow it down a little bit.
Yeah, pumping the brakes.
Pumping the brakes, exactly, and making it more sustainable. Population is growing faster than it ever has before, and we need solutions to be able to sustain our growth and our evolution as a species, not just as one country versus another, but as a global species. So my belief and my experience has shown me that bringing more of a mindful approach to how we do things and being able to be in touch with how we're really feeling about it, which is sometimes uncomfortable, has a huge potential to slow down the rate at which we are exploiting the planet.
Do you have any stories or examples of people coming in, maybe being a bit skeptical about meditation? I was previously like an ecologist, like a hardcore scientist, I guess, at the start of my career. I was very resistant to mindfulness meditation. What can I get out of sitting silently? Do you have any stories about people kind of coming to one of your concerts or workshops and maybe having an experience around this?
Well, actually, the story that comes to mind is one of my own experience. It was the summer of 2009, that's about 13 years ago. I was hired to work as a cinematographer on a documentary film that was covering a story about a very long and ancient pilgrimage in north of Spain called the Camino de Santiago. Maybe you've heard of it. It's a very, very ancient pilgrimage and a very long walk in a beautiful part of the world that a director from the United States decided to make a movie about. And I remember one morning, the director gathered the entire crew together in her hotel room before we started shooting to meditate. And there were about 10 of us. And it probably was not so long, maybe like half an hour, 45 minutes, something to do for breakfast just to help us get on the same page. That was one of my first experiences with meditation. And I still remember how difficult it was to just sit there in silence for, let's say, 30 minutes with 10 other people. I tell that story because 13 years later, I'm kind of running a sound meditation company, and that was my starting place. But I think it's a funny example of how far you can come if you're open to growth and open to change, to really try something new that at first is very difficult. Total honesty, that was my first experience with meditation. And at the time, I really didn't understand it. I really didn't get it. It was very difficult for me to get behind, but here we are now. It's a good journey.
It's funny how that works. I think my first time meditating was probably in high school. So, similar environment, a bunch of people maybe doing it for the first time in a room. Since then, I've done meditation retreats and yoga festivals. I'm sure people from the past would be like, what, Nate, really? He does that? So thanks for talking about this and letting me smuggle meditation into the show. How have you seen others react to maybe some of your work? And kind of in becoming more mindful and how that changes their focus, towards the ocean, towards the environment, towards themselves.
Sure. People tell me after they leave our concerts quite regularly, gosh, how did you do that? I am so relaxed. I am so calm. I am the most relaxed I've ever felt. And I think people really feel the power of what whales, dolphins, and other underwater species have to say, having just listened to so many sounds from the ocean. Sometimes people are very emotional. I have had many people at the end really just like need a hug or need to cry and let out, which is beautiful and something that I would encourage more of for anybody going to attend experiences, to really let yourself feel everything authentically and let it out. So they do become like a bit of a therapeutic session to release emotions that don't serve them anymore, that they don't want to have in their body, which is, I think, essential practice to live a healthy life.
Yeah, there's not a lot of space for that in the ocean conservation world. So I think it's good to create that space.
Yeah, thank you. For example, some of our NGO partners who are working every day in this space, namely the company Oceanic Global, I know when members of their team have come to our shows and they've told me afterwards just how beautiful it was. They say to me that it motivates them to keep working in the way that they do and that they're more deeply connected to their own personal missions and running the great organizations that they've created, which is amazing feedback to hear. When we perform at conferences like at the COP, given that the audience is already pretty familiar with the climate crisis and this conversation, we don't have to do much education, But really our role there is to re-inspire, revitalize, reinvigorate people's passions and hold space for them to maybe come up with new ideas that they hadn't thought of yet, that just come from within. I have seen so many people and met so many people around the world who really care about the environment, who really care about the ocean, who want to protect it, who want to do something. And I feel like this is really where my deepest work is called and where this project has the most potential, because these are regular people, you know, from different economic backgrounds, different nationalities, races, religions, who all care about protecting life underwater. As a musician, you know, we're given like this gift of being able to see a lot of different places, because I think musicians historically have always been very nomadic and very much a type of person who has to travel a bit to do what we do. I've been blessed to tour so far in the Middle East, Europe, North and Central America, a little bit in the South Pacific. I'm really inspired by how many people around the world want to come together and be part of the solution. This is very cool.
We want to play some of your music for our listeners. Is there a particular song that you think would be a good sample or representative of your work for them to listen to?
That's always a tough one. I'd say there's one track called Unity, which includes the song of a humpback whale with some meditative clarinet that I'm playing. That one might be a good one to start with.
All right. We're going to play a bit of that track with the humpback whale sound.
Great.
Do you have like a story behind that song? How did you pick the song of the humpback whale?
So I was living in Northern California about 3 years ago. I'm based in Berlin now. And I was teaching workshops at a yoga studio in Santa Cruz, California, about sound as a yogic practice. And I gave a concert one day, and at the end of the concert, a gentleman came up to me and said, "I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much for sharing. And if you'd ever like to work with recordings of whales, please come to my office." And it turned out that he works at the aquarium, the Monterey Bay Aquatic Research Institute, who are an incredible group in America that are doing research 24 hours a day, every day of the year, and are collecting data that tells us what it sounds like and what it looks like underwater. And I remember the first time I went to hear these recordings from my friend John, Dr. John Ryan. He played me the clip of humpbacks, and it just completely took my breath away. And this was a moment that I will remember for the rest of my life. It was hard to describe in words. And it just really inspired me to start creating music that was a conversation with what these whales had to say. So in this particular track, I'm really trying to let the whales be the lead singers of the band. And I'm there to fill out the rest of the soundscape that helps us listen to what they're saying. Of course, we don't really know. There are a lot of people who are working on finding out how to decode whale song. There is a belief that this particular conversation is a love song, a mating call between two whales. So I definitely like to connect with that element and help people feel that connection that's existing underwater.
I take it you've listened to a lot of different whale sounds and underwater animal sounds. How would you sort of describe a humpback whale sound? How is it different from, maybe a dolphin or a seal?
I think it's much more of a deep calling. If you think about it as where the sound is coming from in our body, I would say it comes more from like the gut and the stomach and the depth of your soul versus like your vocal cords and your throat or your tonsils.
It's like a whole body hum.
Yeah. And that's just the humpback whales. Each whale makes a different sound, which I learned in my discovery in producing this project. The blue whales, for example, are creating sounds that are very deep. It's more equivalent to the low hum, like an earthquake. That kind of rocking, that real intensity a blue whale can create through sound, through sonar. We really had to be very careful about the volume that we were playing back these blue whale sounds through. We had a pretty well-powered subwoofer, and there were a few tests that we did where it really did feel like the whole floor was shaking.
Yeah, I don't want to cause a mini earthquake or summon a whale.
You don't want to create any type of fear or anything, but I mention it because I want to demonstrate the power of what these creatures can produce. And when you're lying, especially on the floor, which has been a big way that we've shared this experience, and you hear this low vibration, you feel like you're getting kind of a massage from a whale, which is pretty cool.
Something that, after listening to it, something that I think about is, a lot of ocean conservationists talk about how every other breath we take is from the ocean. And then we think about a whale sound, right? And you were talking about this journey that the whale takes. It's like one very long breath. They go to the surface, they take a breath, they hold it, they go down. How do you incorporate, or do you incorporate, this sort of breath work and that kind of meditation aspect into the song?
Yeah, I'm so happy you mentioned breath work, because that has been a big part of my practice in my personal journey to heal and really release a lot. But I remember one saxophone teacher did tell me at the beginning, he said, you need to be doing daily breathing exercises. And that's more important for you than scales or musical theory at that point in my musical journey. And so really linking the two together, seeing like, wow, this instrument is telling me to do something in order to be able to play it and have a good sound. This inspired me to really start paying attention to my air capacity. And so I mention that because, to your question, in the concert, I am using some sounds of the breath that help people get into a rhythm. And this is an invitation. You don't have to breathe with me. You can if you want to. But it starts to create a bit of a rhythm that helps people get into the experience and go on the journey. I think the breath is a huge part of what is available to us to support this mindful way of living. And I like what you say, too, that every other breath we take is from the ocean. I'm going to remember that one.
Yeah. Well, 50%, it's either half of all of our breaths are from the ocean or every other breath, depending on how you do the math in the end. We've been talking about, purification, healing. Music can be a form of healing. Breath work can be a form of healing. Can you sort of explain how sound can be used as healing, as therapy? And what kind of healing comes out of that?
I would say there's many health benefits to incorporating a sound meditative practice into your life. I think the part that I really feel is most applicable and the most accessible to people is really to see it as a way to develop a practice of deep listening. From this place, I think it allows us to experience life in a whole new way. For example, by being able to participate in a sound meditation experience, you're kind of training your ear. It's kind of like mental fitness, a workout for your mind, for your ear, and your ability to hear more intentionally and more precisely. So why do that? Why is that a good thing to do? Well, with that ability to listen and really listen to yourself, the whole world can be available to you in a brand new way. It's been incredible in my own personal life, and to witness this amongst friends and teachers and participants in our sessions, to be able to realize, oh, that's how I really am feeling about this. Or I just had this great idea. I'm going to go move to a different country or start a business. Or actually, she is the love of my life. This ability to really listen to what's true for you is amazing. And then from that place of being so connected to how you really feel about it and are not thinking so much maybe, or like coming up with all the mental resistance, there's a flow that can emerge in life that is just fantastic. And then be able not only to listen to ourselves on a deeper level, but to our friends, our partners, our families, our colleagues, and really listen to what they're saying. And then to expand it kind of one layer beyond that. Now we've talked about listening to the self, listening to each other in our personal lives. What about on a societal level? What about on a global consciousness level of people who are all working to do the same thing, like protect the ocean, like protect the climate, to really be able to listen to each other rather than fighting with each other about how we do that? And I think if all of us inherently were born knowing how to do that, there wouldn't be the thousands of problems that exist in the world today. So being able to use sound as a way into that practice, I think is a great way to get started. Over time, maybe you don't need it as much. Maybe it's not necessary because you're already listening so clearly. But at the beginning, it's very helpful just to be able to use it as a way to focus your mind on a particular area.
Fascinating. Yeah. A way to connect people, a way to get them to slow down and to stop and listen. And then from there, so much is possible that you wouldn't even know because you can't or won't or don't listen to what's happening inside. I want to talk about ocean trash. So I've been listening to a couple songs. It's animal music. It's the nice things about the ocean. Have you made a song with ocean trash? You know, the ocean is full of pieces of plastic. There's 8 million tons of waste, unfortunately, entering the ocean every year. It is, unfortunately, for better or worse, part of the tapestry of the ocean now. Does ocean trash, does pollution come up in your music?
That's a great idea right there. We have not made a track yet with any sounds of ocean trash. So this could be a new idea. And if you do have any samples, please send them my way.
We're a trash podcast, so, we're going to ask about that.
Wonderful. I'm happy you do. What we have done in the journey to not only listen to how beautiful it sounds in the ocean, but we want to make people feel what it's really like underwater and place them there so that they can understand and have that experience, for better or worse. And the one sound that I have decided to include so far is the sound of a ship that comes by. This is a really powerful part of the concert. I'm playing a drum at that time. It's a handpan, very beautiful instrument. And it's one of the moments that I love the most because we've spatialized this sound so that it really feels like the ship is passing by, as if it's coming right over you and going from one side to the other. Just as if you were the whale in the ocean, just chilling. And we decided to do this for the reason you're describing, to really let people know what some of the problems are as well. Living in the global society that we live in, we're all dependent on the global e-commerce and economic system in some way. And how we receive things, how we live, unfortunately requires ocean freighting. This is just what our society has created to move material from one side of the planet to the other. And one of the things that I've been so inspired by in our partners at the Monterey Bay Aquatic Research Institute is that all of this data collection, all of this research and recording is actually used to influence policymakers where to protect and where to allow for those ships to go in the ocean, to keep certain parts of the sea quiet. This is more a conversation around ocean noise and ocean noise pollution than plastics. But I wanted to mention the ocean noise because this is kind of an issue that most people don't really know about and might not seem like that big of a deal. But if species underwater cannot communicate with each other because we are polluting their environment, that's going to have a ripple effect down to every organism in the sea and beyond. And one of the things that was monitored during the pandemic was an increase in the amount of whale song as there was a decrease in the amount of shipping traffic. If we're able to consume less, buy more local, reuse things, be aware of where what we're buying is coming from, you're gonna, as the end consumer, have a way to reduce that noise pollution and make it easier for one whale to talk to another, for example.
That's right. Yeah. I'm glad you brought up noise pollution.
Yeah, and this was something that I learned just in the last few years that was even something to think about.
Yeah. Sound is how animals see the world.
That's absolutely right. And especially when choosing what types of activities can you do that are human-powered rather than motor-powered sports. Kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding, swimming, canoeing, all kinds of ways to recreate on water and enjoy it that are less impactful than sitting on a boat and having this noise.
Yeah. No motor required.
Yeah, in this part of the pollution problem. But I do try and think about okay, is this really necessary today? Or can I get myself in a good place doing something that's more reliant on me and my energy? But I also wanted to touch on the plastic conversation. Since we have been around for about 3 years, we have strategically partnered with companies that have made a commitment to either be removing plastic from the ocean using the products that they sell or picking up plastic before it gets to the ocean. This has been really exciting to learn what types of solutions exist and understand how many products are being made today with either ocean-bound plastic or ocean recycled plastic. And we really try and support those companies and have a lot of different partnerships that really integrate our project into their mission. And one thing that we really try and inspire amongst our audience is to support local beach cleanup and conservation related activities that are happening in their own communities so that people can be part of the solutions and be regularly participating in events that are happening around the world, and use our concerts as a place for people to come together and maybe meet some new friends and recognize how they can make a difference in their local community, which I think is the best way to do things.
What is your longer term vision for your companies and this Ocean Sound project? Where do you see it going? Where would you like to see it go?
We're at the cusp of a really exciting fall season because we are going to be presenting at 4 conferences this fall, both in the climate industry as well as the immersive arts and film and music industries. So that if you wanted to, in Taipei, host a listening session or a film screening, that we could support you with the materials you need to do that. You bring 20, 50, 100, 500 of your friends together and have an experience together and have had our project really become a way that you can all connect and do something that is meaningful. And so we're excited about this direction with the show to really create this higher potential for impact. This would be fantastic, and we're currently raising some capital to make that possible and aligning with the right partners to bring all of this to life. So in short, a bit of the vision of where we're headed, and if anyone is interested in being a part of that, they can definitely reach out to me and send a message to start a conversation.
Wow, that's fantastic. And if people want to find your music, if they want to find you, where do they go?
The best place to go would be to our website, which is soundsoftheocean.com, and that has links to all of our social media channels as well as an email address. Or you could connect personally with me at my website, joshuasammiller.com, same on Instagram or LinkedIn and on Spotify. So either of those places would be great, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Joshua. This has been a really great conversation. We've got to touch on so many topics we haven't covered in the show before. Meditation, sound, noise pollution, art, kind of bringing that all together, healing even. So I really enjoyed this, and thanks for coming and spending your time and sharing what you're doing with us.
Thank you, Nate. It's a pleasure.
All right, so that was our conversation with Joshua Sam Miller. And to play him out, we're going to just play one of his songs. We're going to put on shuffle mode and leave you with the sweet sounds of the ocean to continue on your day.
That was Nature Nate, host of Waste Not, Why Not. This has been a Ghost Island Media production. This episode was produced by me, Emily Waiwu. Gerald Williams is our production assistant. Editing by Teresa Yen. Music you heard today include tracks from Joshua Sam Miller. Check out our show notes for time codes and track names. And special thanks to Julia Henley. Bye. We'll see you next time. Happy New Year.